What are the traditions we should stick with? That's what we're going to talk about today in Matthew 15. Hi, everyone. This is Jill from the North Wood, doing the Bible, one chapter per episode, a slow roll through the Bible. Last time we talked about Jesus, the boat, Peter walking out to the boat, and the feeding of the 5,000 men, maybe more like 20,000 people, who knows? But he has compassion for our needs, and in the end, even when he is in pain himself, for like example, when John the Baptist was murdered by Herod's son. Now, the Pharisees are hot on his trail. They're starting to get upset. You get this idea that they're coming down from Jerusalem, and maybe these aren't the local Pharisees, but instead are the temple important ones, the big guys from the city. And they ask him, why do you not do the traditions of washing your hands? But then Jesus gives them a different message and challenges them. Aren't you supposed to be honoring your mother and father? And anyone who reviles his mother and father should die? Well, why aren't you doing the things that you're supposed to do to support your mother and father? What they were doing and why he was yelling at them and why he was giving this message is that they're supposed to support their mother and father, but that means also monetarily as well. What they would do is they would give to the temple to avoid giving money to their mothers and their fathers. Now, if they worked for the temple, the money would come back to them in payment. So it was a trick. So they didn't have to honor their mother and father. They didn't have to take care of them. We found a way to avoid the 10 Commandments through almost like an accounting trick. That's why Jesus was specifically trying to challenge them. They were trying to get everyone else to follow the rules, and yet they themselves were acting like lawyers, trying to skirt away from it. And they did that all the time. Like they would bring people for the Romans to murder. Well, I didn't murder you. The Romans murdered you. I don't act lustfully towards other people, but they had it in their heart. Jesus is going to challenge them, and he tells them then that Isaiah in 29:13, they honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. In vain worship to me, teaching as doctrine the commandments of men. They are talking about things that are made up. They're not preaching God's gospel. They're preaching their own gospel. They're not fulfilling God's word. They're fulfilling themselves. And boy, he really lets them have it at this part. And so then he brings up, what defiles a person? Is it a human being that doesn't wash their hands? I mean, washing your hands is good, right? We all wash our hands. And he's not saying anything about washing your hands. This is ritual hand washing, ritual washing to clean your soul. But you are defiled in your soul even if you just wash your hands in this ceremonial washing. What you eat doesn't defile you. Washing your hands, dirty paws, that doesn't defile you either. What comes out of your mouth, what comes out of your heart. When you're a good person, good things come out of your mouth. But when you're an evil person, bad things come out of your mouth. And the Pharisees were obviously going to be very offended by what he said. And he goes on to say that the Heavenly Father didn't plant bad seeds and that they're going to be rooted up. You became bad seeds. You're going to be part of the weeds that are pulled out and thrown into the eternal fire. And not because the farmer planted bad seed, he planted good seed. It was the evil one who planted bad seeds. This is a direct attack against them. And then he goes on to say, if you have ears, hear. If you have eyes, see. And he's saying, you're blind. You're the blind leading the blind. You're doing all this stuff, and you're causing everyone to go into the pit, eternal pit of hell. And then says, do you not understand this? They're not paying attention. They're not letting it soak in. They're not listening to what he's saying. They're just going to be mad about this. And so they're just going to try to catch him. He says, whatever goes from your hands into your stomach, if it's bad, you just throw it up. But because there's evil in your heart and evil in your thoughts, that's what's defiling you, not washing your hands. And if you're in the Jewish faith, there were kosher laws. You had to eat this, but not that. There were all sorts of ways that you could defile yourself through the process of eating foods that weren't allowed, ways that you ate food that weren't allowed, or foods that you couldn't eat on certain days. And he's saying, this is about your soul, not about food rules. what's going on in your heart? What is coming spewing out of your mouth? So then he goes on to Tyre and Sidon, and this is going to be modern-day Lebanon and Syria, where the Canaanites, the Phoenicians lived. The Phoenicians was a great civilization, and through DNA testing, they found out these are pretty much Canaanite people. And so he's in the city. So this means he's going far away from Jerusalem. He's getting out of the heat of these Pharisees that are going to try to trap him. And a woman comes crying to him, "Please have mercy on the Lord. Help me. My child is demon-possessed." And he says, "Hey, I came here for the people of Israel," because he has been preaching to the people of Israel. "I'm here to help them, not you." Now, you might think that this is a harsh word, but again, remember, Jesus knows the heart, and he knows how people are going to respond to that, and basically then goes on to call her a dog. "I came here for the people of Israel, not the dogs." In this particular case, there are two kinds of dogs. I mentioned them before. There's the scavenger, scary dogs that live on the beach, like when I was in Ashkelon. And then there's the house dog, which also sounds bad, but a pet, a beloved pet. And she says, "Yeah, I'm a dog, but even dogs get to eat the scraps off of the table from the family." Even so, if you're here from Israel, fine. Give Israel the best. But even as a dog, you can give me the very bottom of the plate. And he knows, like I said, he knows what she's going to say. He knows what it is that she's going to do. And she says, "Please, Lord, I will accept anything from you." And he knows her resilience. He knows she didn't walk away. She didn't go away embarrassed or like all those other people who did go away from Jesus ashamed because they wanted a house or they wanted to bury their father or they wanted to not give up everything that they owned. Instead of being focused about the table and the whole dog thing, her faith in Jesus was standing strong. "I know you can heal my kid. Please do so." Then in ESV it says, "Oh woman, great is your faith. Be it done as you desire." And the daughter was healed. She stuck to it. She stuck with it, her determination, her faith, and that made an impression on Jesus. So he goes back to Galilee and he heals a lot of people. They glorified God, it says, the God of Israel, and people are starting to recognize him for who he is. Large crowds of people gather around him immediately. He has compassion, again, that deep compassion that is soul-wrenching from the heart, not just like, "Oh, they're there." This is a deep love and compassion for people who are suffering the wages of sin, illness, demon possessions. Now they're in the middle of nowhere. There was no place for them to go because this crowd had followed him out to the wilderness. They all came to hear him. They all wanted to know exactly what he was doing. And so again, he wants to feed them. And we're going to hear more about this story a little bit later. But in this case, they had 7 loaves of bread and a few fish. So he sat down. He prayed over the bread and he broke it. He had the crowd then sit down because you don't want to have a mob, people rushing to him. They're starving, they're hungry, and suddenly there's baskets of food everywhere. So there could have been a crush with all of this. So by sitting down, we're going to do this in an orderly fashion. The disciples, not just the apostles, are going to bring in the food out to them. He feeds another 4,000 people. And we know this is a separate story. We're going to talk about in other Gospels how we know this is a separate story. But then he tells them to go home. It's over with. And he gets in a boat and goes to Magadan, which is another town on the Sea of Galilee, maybe referring to the place of Magdalene, Magdal meaning the word tower, where Mary is from, Mary Magdalene is from. And that ends the chapter. What I'm going to meditate on is how God is here for everybody. And he wants us to have that stick-to-itiveness, that determination with us, even if he says something maybe we didn't want to hear. He wants to have faith in him, whether we're a Canaanite, a Phoenician, a Pharisee, a Sadducee, a Jewish person. He wants us to come home. He wants us to have persistence with him in faith. And what I'm going to pray about is this idea that what makes you unholy is what's going on in your heart. Again, the Pharisees were trying to sit there and make all these rules that were trying to keep people in line. Am I not going to go to heaven because I'm turning the pages of my book on Sabbath? Yeah, I'm still kind of bitter about that. No, it's what's in your heart. how you're trying to align yourself with God. You're praying for strength with God. You're not looking for 3 stars up in the sky. Instead, God cares about what's going on in our hearts and our minds and what's coming out of our mouths. And what I want to share with others is the fact that God is here for everyone. There is no one unworthy of God's love, and He recognizes faith in any human being, Jew, Gentile, anyone. It doesn't matter to Him. He wants people to have faith and come back home. Everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you watching the video. Please remember to subscribe and tell another friend. If you have any revelations, please put them in the chat channel. If there's something you agree with, something you disagree with, did you have any insights in that? Are you filling out the Ramps Bible study? Let me know. I'd love to hear about it. And remember that you can always email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. I hope you're enjoying this slow roll through the Bible, one chapter at a time.